Why haven't polar bears eaten the Inuit yet? What helps the Inuit defend themselves against bear attacks? How do they manage to coexist with the White Death? Why do scientists value the knowledge of the Inuit so highly? In the icy desert of the Arctic lives one of the most dangerous predators on Earth, the polar bear. Without protection, your chances of surviving an attack are less than 10%. Although many believe polar bears avoid humans, they can become aggressive, especially when hungry or feeling threatened. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples such as the Inuit have lived side by side with these powerful animals, developing ingenious safety methods, techniques we're only beginning to fully appreciate. The vast Arctic is home to both polar bears and Inuit communities, creating a unique coexistence tested over centuries. Today, it is estimated that between 22,000 and 31,000 polar bears inhabit the Arctic Circle, with the largest population, around 16,000, found in the Canadian Arctic, living on sea ice and along the coasts. At the same time, about 65,000 Inuit live across 53 communities in Canada's Northern Territories, many situated within traditional polar bear regions, inevitably leading to frequent encounters. In Nunavut, Canada's largest territory, authorities record between 300 and 800 confirmed bear encounters annually. In certain settlements, like Arviat on the western shore of Hudson Bay, residents report seeing bears near their homes at least once a week during ice-free periods. With climate change and shifting ice conditions, such encounters have notably increased. Polar bears are forced to spend more time on land, drawing nearer to Inuit communities. In the 1980s, coastal communities recorded around 20-30 bear sightings per year. Today, some settlements face hundreds of incidents. Traditional knowledge about polar bear behavior has become more valuable than ever, as generations of experience allow for deeper understanding of this complex animal. Long before rifles and electric fences, the Inuit developed remarkably effective survival strategies. Their safety relied not on modern technology, but on centuries of observation passed down through generations. They viewed the polar bear not as a mindless killer, but as a sentient being deserving respect. This wasn't just philosophy, it was practical wisdom. By predicting bear behavior, hunters could preemptively neutralize danger. The first line of defense was detecting a bear long before it came close. Hunters used wet fingers and snowdrifts to determine wind direction and visualize scent dispersal. One elder recalled how his father sensed a bear's approach by detecting subtle air movements from over 2 kilometers away. Inuit hunters became masters of tracking. They could gauge a bear's size from its footprints, its hunger from the straightness of its path, and its intent from the spacing between its steps. The snow is like a newspaper, if you know how to read it, one hunter said, highlighting the subtle art of interpreting the snowy canvas. They could even recognize variations in breathing. Low, steady inhales suggested curiosity, rapid, shallow breaths meant fear, while deep growls signaled aggression. These skills proved so effective that modern scientists began incorporating Inuit methods into Arctic safety protocols. Yet vigilance alone wasn't enough. The Inuit understood that the polar bear's extraordinary sense of smell, able to detect a seal from up to 30 kilometers away, required critical food storage tactics. Meat was never kept near dwellings. Instead, it was stored in elevated caches made of ice and placed downwind from camps, often in multiple locations to avoid creating a single attractive target. Seal oil lamps used for heat and light were positioned so their smoke drifted away from living areas. During risky seasons, snow barriers were built to disperse the scent trail and confuse the bear's nose. Cooking was done in distant zones or specially designed snow kitchens with venting tunnels to hide the smell. To further mask scent, certain types of moss were burned, and meat was aged in stone caches packed tightly with snow to reduce its aroma. "You have to be smarter than a bear's nose," one elder remarked. Building safe shelter in bear territory meant more than staying warm. It meant constructing a fortress. Dome-shaped igloos could withstand even the weight of a curious bear, with entrances often narrow and low, too small for the animal's broad shoulders. Some igloos featured multiple rooms linked by twisting corridors, making it difficult for a bear to move inside. Inuit settlements were often built on high ground with panoramic views, where wind would carry human scents away from the bear's typical routes. Natural ice ridges acted as barriers, since bears avoided rough terrain. To provide early warning, alert systems were created. Snow paths were specially tamped down around camps. Stepping on them made distinct sounds depending on the zone, allowing people to determine a bear's direction, even in darkness. In high-risk areas, night watches were organized, doubling as gatherings for storytelling, tool-making, and teaching the younger generation. One Inuit smiled and said, "Night watch was our first evening show." When confrontation was unavoidable, the Inuit relied on traditional weapons. Chief among them was the nuluk, a 2-meter spear made from driftwood or whalebone with a barbed tip carved from bone or tusk. If a wounded bear fled, the jagged tip would leave a trail for continued pursuit. A quick release mechanism allowed the spearhead to detach if the bear grabbed the weapon, giving the hunter a chance to retreat. Dogs played a major role in defense. Beyond transport, they acted as early warning systems. Trained dogs would bark and form a circle when sensing a predator. Some could even distinguish between male and female bears by scent and signal accordingly. Inuit also used traps and natural barriers. Seal bones strung together to create clinking sounds in the wind served as noise alarms. Icy corridors slowed bears down, buying time for defense. Spear shafts were greased with seal fat to prevent cracking, and later, metal tools were wrapped in seal skin to maintain durability in extreme cold. One hunter noted, "Your weapon is only as effective as how well you care for it." Arctic conditions are brutal, and extreme weather plays a vital role in bear-human interactions. During violent blizzards, when winds howl and the plains disappear into white shrouds, people must rely not only on sight but on sound, touch, and even instinct. The roar of gales and shriek of ice particles can muffle even a bear's growl. In such moments, Inuit use special bone chimes, structures of stretched seal bones and hides that emit specific sounds when disturbed. These acoustic signals, along with the faint vibrations in the ice felt by seasoned hunters, offer advance warning of a nearby bear. Encounters with bears weren't rare, and Inuit stories of heroic meetings are passed down through generations, both as warnings and sources of inspiration. One such tale took place in 1997 near the settlement of Taloyoak. In the deep winter, when darkness was nearly unbroken and the cold could pierce bone, a bear drawn by the scent of freshly dried meat approached the camp. That night, the wind blew so fiercely that usual snow warning signals failed, and most residents slept unaware of the looming threat. But one dog named Ilak, trained since youth, began barking relentlessly, rousing the camp. An elder immediately sensed danger and led a group of hunters to a preset snow corridor trap reinforced with rattling bones. As the bear neared, the wind triggered a haunting chime. Startled by the unfamiliar sound, the bear froze. Then, disoriented by the resonance, turned and retreated. In the following hours, the hunters managed to safeguard the shelter and study the bear's behavior, minimizing damage. This story remains a powerful lesson. Vigilance, traditional techniques, and swift action can save lives even in the harshest conditions. In another life-or-death moment near Arviat, a group of young hunters encountered a ravenously hungry bear during spring. The bear broke into a shared food area just as the Inuit were working to preserve supplies. A young hunter, unprepared for the sudden encounter, applied a lesser-known technique. He lit a fire with a special kind of dry moss known to suppress scent. The smoke formed a thick cloud, allowing him to slip away to shelter. At the same time, experienced hunters used prepared traps made of ice slabs to slow the bear's advance. Deprived of clear scent and sound cues, the bear eventually veered off into the forest. Elders later noted this event as a clear example of how adaptation, quick thinking, and traditional knowledge are vital for survival in the Arctic's unforgiving world. These vivid, instructive examples highlight that the Inuits' success lay not in brute force, but in understanding nature and using every available resource. Through centuries of observation, they came to see the polar bear not as an enemy, but as a neighbor, an intelligent being with a logic that is predictable, if sometimes difficult to grasp. Today, as climate change and industrial development continue to reshape the Arctic, the ancient wisdom of the Inuit is more valuable than ever. Their approach, seeing the bear not just as a threat but as a living being deserving of deep respect, can teach us how to live in harmony with nature. This is not a story of man versus nature, but one of balance, reverence, and survival in a land where nature tests every living thing. In this harsh, unforgiving realm, it's not the strongest who survive, but those who listen, observe, and adapt, blending ancient traditions with modern understanding.